We continue our series of morning sermons through Paul's first letter to the Corinthians, 1 Corinthians chapter 11. We've done a couple sermons in this passage, one dealing specifically with the subject of head coverings. Why is that mentioned here? What's that apply to? Secondly, we looked at the context that Paul puts in terms of the call of every Christian to submit themselves to God. Tonight, or today, we look at this passage again as it relates to Paul's teaching on what we call mutual dependence between husband and wife, but then also the order that he's established in marriage. So this is the last sermon on this section. We're going to be looking at 1 Corinthians 11, verse 2 to verse 16, so we have the whole context before us. I call you now to give careful attention to this reading of God's word from, again, 1 Corinthians 11, beginning at verse 2. Now I commend you because you remember me in everything and maintain the traditions even as I delivered them to you. But I want you to understand that the head of every man is Christ, the head of a wife is her husband, and the head of Christ is God. Every man who prays or prophesies with his head covered dishonors his head, but every wife who prays or prophesies with her head uncovered dishonors her head, since it was the same as if her head were shaven. For if a wife will not cover her head, then she should cut her hair short. But since it is disgraceful for a wife to cut off her hair or shave her head, let her cover her head. For a man ought not to cover his head, since he is the image and glory of God. But woman is the glory of man. For man was not made from woman, but woman from man. Neither was man created for woman, but woman for man. That is why a wife ought to have a symbol of authority on her head, because of the angels. Nevertheless, in the Lord, woman is not independent of man.